Princess Zara stood by the large window of her spaceship and looked down at the blue planet called Earth. Her long, silver hair moved gently as she breathed. Her purple skin had golden lines that showed she was from the royal family of the Valkyrie Empire. She felt tired and angry about this whole situation. The marriage contract lay on the table behind her. She had read it many times, but it still made no sense to her. Why would her father, the Emperor, make her marry a human? Humans were weak creatures that lived only about 80 years. They had no advanced technology. They could not even travel between stars without help from other species. "Your Highness," said Commander Veltar as he walked into the room. His blue skin was darker than hers, and he wore the black uniform of the Imperial Navy. "The human delegation has arrived. They are waiting in Docking Bay 7. Zarath did not turn around. "Tell me again why we are doing this foolish thing." "The mineral rights, Your Highness. Earth has large amounts of quantum crystals that we need for our ships. Without them, our empire will become weak. This marriage will make sure we can mine those crystals for the next 100 years. And, all I have to do is marry some primitive warrior who probably cannot even read." Zarath finally turned to face her commander. "What do we know about this Marcus Chun?" Commander Veltar looked at his datapad. "He is 32 years old. He works as a diplomat for the human government. Before that, he was a soldier. The humans call him a warrior diplomat. He speaks 7 different languages, including ours." This surprised Zarath a little. Most humans could barely speak their own language well. "He speaks our language?" "Yes, Your Highness." "Quite well, according to our reports. He has studied our culture for 3 years." Zarath walked to her mirror and checked her appearance. She wore a long, flowing dress made from the finest silk in the empire. Jewels covered her arms and neck. She wanted to look impressive for this meeting, even if she did not respect the human. "Very well. Let us get this over with. The sooner I meet this creature, the sooner we can finish this business." They walked through the long hallways of the ship. Other Valkyrie bowed as the princess passed. The ship was beautiful, with walls made of crystal and metal that shone like stars. Everything was perfect and clean, the way her people liked it. When they reached the meeting room, Zarath expected to see a big, scary human covered in armor and weapons. Her people had told her that human warriors were violent and crude. They fought with simple weapons and had no sense of honor or culture. Instead, she saw a man sitting calmly at the table. He was tall but not huge. He wore simple but clean clothes that looked formal. His dark hair was neat, and his brown eyes looked intelligent. When she entered, he stood up and bowed in the proper Valkyrie way. "Your Highness," he said in her language. His accent was strange but understandable. "I am honored to meet you. My name is Marcus Chun." Zarath stopped walking. His pronunciation was almost perfect. He had bowed exactly the right way. Most aliens made mistakes when they tried to show respect to her people. "You speak our language well," she said carefully. "I have had good teachers, and I believe that understanding each other is the first step to working together." They sat down across from each other. Zarath studied this human more closely. His skin was darker than most humans she had seen in pictures. He moved carefully and quietly, like a trained fighter, but he did not seem dangerous or wild. "Tell me about yourself, Marcus Chun. What kind of warrior are you?" Marcus smiled a little. "I prefer to think of myself as a problem solver. Fighting is just one way to solve problems. Usually, it is not the best way, but you were a soldier." "Yes, for 12 years. But now I work to prevent wars, not to start them. I learned that peace is much harder to achieve than victory in battle." This was not what Zarath expected to hear. She had thought humans only understood violence and simple thinking. Why did you agree to this marriage? Do you not find it strange to marry someone you have never met? Marcus was quiet for a moment. He looked out the window at the stars. My people ask me to do this because they trust me. Your people need something from us, and we need something from you. Sometimes personal sacrifice is necessary for the good of many people. You see this as a sacrifice? I see it as a responsibility. But I hope it can become something more than that. I have studied your culture, Your Highness. Your people value honor, wisdom, and beauty. These are things I respect. Zareth felt confused. This human spoke like a philosopher, not like a simple warrior. What have you learned about our culture? I know that your people have existed for over 10,000 years. You have created art and music that makes people feel wonder. You have explored more than 300 star systems. You value truth and justice above personal gain. He knew more about her people than most of her own citizens did. Zareth began to feel uncomfortable. She had expected this to be easy. She would meet a stupid human, agree to the marriage contract, and then ignore him for the rest of their arrangement. Would you like to have dinner together tonight? Marcus asked. I brought some food from my world. I thought you might be curious about human culture. You cook? A little. I find it relaxing. And food is a good way to understand a people. That evening, Zareth went to Marcus's rooms on the ship. She was surprised to find him cooking over a small flame. The smell was interesting and different from Velkari food. What is this? She asked. We call it stir-fry. Vegetables and rice cook quickly over high heat. Simple food, but it tastes good. They sat and ate together. The food was simple, but it had strong, pleasant flavors. As they ate, Marcus told her stories about Earth. He spoke about oceans and forests, about cities full of millions of people, about music and art that his people created. Why do your people fight so much? Zareth asked. We have heard that humans are always at war. Because we are still young, Marcus said honestly. We have not learned to think beyond our small groups yet. But we are learning. That is why this alliance with your people is important to us. You can teach us wisdom. And what can you teach us? Marcus thought about this. He reached into a bag and pulled out a small board with black and white squares. On it were small carved pieces. This is a game we call chess. Would you like me to show you? Zareth nodded. As Marcus explained the rules, she realized that this simple human game was actually quite complex. Each piece moved differently. The goal was to protect your king while attacking the enemy king. See this piece? Marcus pointed to the smallest one. We call it a pawn. It seems weak and unimportant. But a pawn that reaches the other side of the board can become any piece it wants. Sometimes the weakest thing in the right place at the right time can change everything. Zareth looked at Marcus with new interest. Perhaps there was more to humans than she had been told. 3 days had passed since Marcus came aboard the Velkari ship. Zareth found herself thinking about the human more than she wanted to admit. He was not like what her advisors had told her to expect. Every morning, he would walk around the ship and greet the crew members. He learned their names and asked about their families. Most Velkari nobles would never speak to common workers. Marcus also spent time in the ship's library, reading about Velkari history and science. When Zareth asked him why, he said he wanted to understand her people better. This surprised her because most aliens only learned what they needed to know for business. On the 4th day, something went wrong. Zareth was having breakfast in her private dining room when the lights began to flicker. A loud alarm started ringing throughout the ship. Commander Veltar's voice came through the communication system. All hands to emergency stations. We have a major problem with the jump drive computer. Zareth ran to the bridge. When she arrived, she saw her crew working frantically at their stations. Marcus was there too, standing quietly and watching everything. "Report," Zareth commanded. "Your Highness," said Engineer Colrim, the ship's chief of technology. "The main computer that controls our faster-than-light travel has malfunctioned. We were trying to jump to the next system when something went wrong. Now we are stuck between dimensions. What does that mean? We cannot move forward or backward. We are trapped in jump space. If we cannot fix this in the next 20 hours, the ship will be destroyed by the dimensional stress." Zareth felt cold fear in her stomach. Being trapped in jump space was one of the worst things that could happen to a space traveler. Ships that stayed too long in the dimension between normal space would be torn apart by forces that no one fully understood. "Can you fix it?" she asked. Engineer Colrim shook his head. "The quantum processors are damaged. We have backup systems, but they are not powerful enough to get us out of here. We need parts that we do not have. How long will it take to repair? If we had the right parts, maybe 30 hours. But we do not have 30 hours. The bridge became very quiet. Everyone knew what this meant. They were going to die. "May I look at the problem?" Marcus asked quietly. Engineer Colrim looked at the human with surprise. "You know about Valkyrie technology? I know about computers and engineering. Sometimes problems look different to fresh eyes." Zareth was about to say no. How could a primitive human help when her best engineers could not? But then she remembered the chess game and how Marcus had explained that weak pieces could sometimes do important things. "Show him," she ordered. Engineer Colrim did not look happy, but he led Marcus to the main computer console. The screen showed hundreds of lines of code and numbers that meant nothing to Zareth. Marcus stared at it for several minutes without saying anything. "The main quantum processor is burned out," Colrim explained. "Without it, we cannot calculate the mathematics needed to leave jump space. The backup processors are too weak." "What if we do not use the backup processors?" Marcus asked. "Then we have no computer power at all. What if we use all the smaller computers on the ship? Every personal computer, every entertainment system, every small processor that runs lights or doors or food preparation." Colrim looked confused. That would be thousands of tiny computers. But they are not connected to the main system, and they are not designed for jump calculations. Can they be connected? Technically, yes. But it would take days to write the programming code to make them all work together. And we only have 20 hours. Marcus nodded slowly. "I need to see the ship's blueprints and a list of all computer systems on board." "Human, this is not possible," Colrim said with irritation. "Even if we could connect all these systems, no one could write the necessary code in time." "Let me try," Marcus said simply. Zareth studied the human's face. He looked calm and focused, not afraid or excited. "Give him what he needs," she ordered. For the next hour, Marcus studied the ship's technical drawings and computer specifications. He asked questions that seemed strange to the Valkyrie engineers. He wanted to know about power levels, communication paths, and processing speeds for systems that had nothing to do with space travel. Then he asked for a place to work and began typing on a computer terminal. "What is he doing?" Zareth asked Colrim. "I am not sure, Your Highness. He's writing code, but I do not understand his method. He's working on 20 different programs at the same time." Zareth watched Marcus work. His fingers moved quickly across the keyboard. Numbers and symbols appeared on the screen faster than she could follow. Every few minutes, he would stop and think, then start typing again even faster. Hours passed. Marcus did not eat or drink anything. He did not take breaks to rest. The Valkyrie engineers tried to help, but Marcus worked so quickly that they could not keep up with his thinking. "How long has he been working?" Zareth asked Commander Voltar. 8 hours, Your Highness. He has not stopped once. That is not possible. No one can concentrate for 8 hours without rest. Humans are different, Veltar said. I have been reading about their species. They evolved as persistence hunters. They would chase animals for days without stopping until the animals became too tired to run. At hour 12, Marcus finally spoke to the other engineers. I need you to start connecting the systems. Begin with the entertainment computers in sections 7 through 12. Route them through the secondary power grid to avoid interference. How can you be sure this will work? Coram asked. I cannot be sure. But doing nothing will certainly not work. The Valkyrie engineers began following Marcus's instructions. As they worked, more of the ship's small computers came online and joined the network that Marcus was building. The main screen showed thousands of tiny processors now connected together. Hour 15. Marcus was still typing code. His eyes were red from staring at the screen, but his hands did not slow down. Zarth brought him food and water. You should rest, she said. Almost finished. Just need to write the coordination protocols. I do not understand how you can work for so long. Marcus paused for a moment and looked at her. When something important needs to be done, humans do not give up. We may not be as smart as your people, or as strong, or as advanced, but we do not stop trying. Our Edin, the jury-rigged computer network, was ready. Marcus had connected over 3,000 small computers and written software to make them work together like one giant brain. It was not as powerful as the original quantum processor, but it might be enough. Beginning jump calculations, Marcus announced. The whole ship hummed with electrical power as thousands of tiny computers began working on the complex mathematics needed to escape. Jump space. Everyone on the bridge watched the main screen. Numbers flew by too fast to read. Progress bars slowly filled up. Time seemed to move very slowly. Calculations complete, Marcus said. He looked exhausted but determined. Initiating jump sequence. The ship shuddered. Lights flashed. Then suddenly, the stars were visible through the windows again. They had escaped jump-space. Engineer Colrim stared at his instruments. Impossible. The network of small computers actually worked. How did you know this would succeed? Marcus finally leaned back in his chair. He had been working for 19 hours without a break. I did not know it would work, but I knew that not trying would definitely fail. Zarath looked at this human with new respect. Her people's advanced technology had failed, but Marcus had solved the problem using creativity and determination. He had worked longer and harder than any Valkyrie could have managed. You saved all our lives, she said. We saved our lives. Your engineers did the actual work. I just suggested a different approach. That night, Zarath could not sleep. She kept thinking about what she had witnessed. Marcus was not just intelligent. He had something her people had lost over thousands of years of advanced civilization. He had the ability to keep trying when everything seemed hopeless. Maybe humans were not as primitive as everyone thought. 2 weeks later, Zarath's ship arrived at Nexus 7, a large space station where many different alien species came to trade and make deals. The station was neutral territory, meaning no one was allowed to fight there. It was the perfect place for the final signing of the marriage contract and trade agreement. Zarath and Marcus walked through the busy hallways of the station. Aliens of all shapes and sizes moved around them. There were tall, thin Zephyrians with their blue skin and extra arms. There were small, furry Mokari traders carrying bags of goods. There were even a few other humans working as merchants and diplomats. It is strange to see so many different species in one place, Zarath said. Diversity makes us stronger, Marcus replied, watching the crowds carefully. Each species has something different to offer. Zarath noticed that Marcus kept looking around as they walked. His eyes moved constantly, checking exits, looking at other people, studying the layout of the station. She was beginning to understand that this human noticed things that others missed. They reached the conference room, where the final negotiations would take place. Representatives from Earth and the Valkyrie Empire sat around a large table. The discussions were boring and technical, mostly about mining rights and shipping schedules. Zareth found herself watching Marcus instead of listening to the talks. He sat quietly, but she could tell he was alert. Several times he looked toward the door or checked his communication device. When she asked him about it, he just said he liked to be careful. The meeting was interrupted by a loud alarm. Red lights began flashing throughout the station, and a voice spoke over the communication system. "Attention all citizens. We are under attack by unknown ships. All security teams to battle stations. All civilians should move to the emergency shelters immediately." Through the large windows of the conference room, they could see explosions in space around the station. 3 large, dark ships were firing weapons at Nexus 7's defenses. The attacking ships had strange symbols painted on their sides, skulls and claws. "Ravager clan pirates," said Admiral Dexmar, the highest-ranking Valkyrie military officer present. "They must have followed us here. Why would pirates attack a neutral station?" asked the human ambassador. "Because they know we are here," Zareth said grimly. "They want to capture me for ransom, or kill me to insult my father's empire." The station shook as more weapons hit its shields. The lights flickered and went out for several seconds. When they came back on, Marcus was standing by the window, studying the attacking ships. "How many fighters do they have?" he asked Admiral Dexmar. "Approximately 60 combat vessels. The station's defenses can probably hold them off, but not for long." "And how many security troops are on the station?" "Perhaps 200. But they are not prepared for a major battle. This is supposed to be neutral territory." Marcus turned away from the window. "We need to get everyone to the emergency shelters. Now, the Valkyrie delegation will make an honorable last stand if necessary," Admiral Dexmar said proudly. "We do not hide from pirates. Honor does not stop bullets," Marcus said bluntly. "And dead heroes cannot protect anyone." Before anyone could argue, the room's door exploded inward. 3 pirates in heavy armor rushed in, carrying energy weapons. They had gray skin and sharp teeth, members of the Skarn species known for their aggression and cruelty. "Nobody move," shouted the leader. "We want the Valkyrie princess alive. Everyone else can die." Admiral Dexmar reached for his ceremonial sword, but the pirate shot him before he could draw it. He fell to the floor, badly wounded, but still alive. Zareth felt terror freeze her muscles. She had trained for combat, but she had never been in a real fight where people were trying to kill her. Marcus stepped forward with his hands raised. "Take me instead. A human diplomat is worth more than a princess." The pirate leader laughed. "Humans are worth nothing. You are not even good slaves." "You are right," Marcus said calmly. "Humans are not worth much. We are weak and stupid." As he spoke, Marcus moved slowly to the left. The pirates kept their weapons pointed at him, but they did not notice that he was moving toward a broken piece of the door. "But we do have one thing that makes us special," Marcus continued. "What is that?" the pirate asked mockingly. "We are very, very angry when people threaten our friends." Marcus suddenly dove to the side, grabbed a sharp piece of metal from the broken door, and threw it at the nearest pirate. The metal piece hit the pirate in the neck, and he dropped his weapon. Marcus rolled forward, picked up the fallen weapon, and shot the second pirate before he could react. The leader tried to shoot Marcus, but the human had already moved behind an overturned table. The energy blast hit the metal table and scattered harmlessly. "How many more of your friends are on this station?" Marcus called out. "Enough to kill everyone here, human. You cannot stop us all." "Probably not. But I can stop you." Marcus suddenly appeared on the other side of the room. Zareth did not understand how he had moved so quickly and quietly. The pirate leader spun around to shoot, but Marcus was already behind him. The human grabbed the pirate's weapon and twisted his arm until he dropped it. "Where are the civilians being held?" Marcus demanded. "I will tell you nothing." Marcus pressed the captured weapon against the pirate's head. "Your friends left you behind to die. You owe them nothing. Where are the civilians?" The pirate's expression changed from defiance to fear. "Cargo Bay 12. They are using the prisoners as shields." Marcus hit the pirate in the head with the weapon, knocking him unconscious. He quickly checked on Admiral Dexmar, who was bleeding but alive. "Can you walk?" Marcus asked the Admiral. "Yes, but barely." "Good. Get everyone to the emergency shelters. Use the maintenance tunnels to avoid the main corridors." "What about you?" Zareth asked. Marcus was checking the captured weapons and gathering spare energy packs. "I am going to Cargo Bay 12. That is suicide. There could be dozens of pirates there." "Maybe, but there are innocent people there who need help. Children, families, people who cannot protect themselves." Zareth stared at him. "Why would you risk your life for strangers?" Marcus looked at her with an expression she had never seen before. His calm, diplomatic face was gone. In its place was something hard and dangerous. Because that is what humans do. We protect the weak, even if it costs us everything. He turned to leave, but Zareth grabbed his arm. "I am coming with you." "No, you are too important. If you die, the alliance between our peoples dies with you. And if you die, I lose the only person who has ever treated me as an equal instead of just a princess." Marcus smiled for the first time since the attack began. "Then we better make sure neither of us dies." They left the conference room and began moving through the station's corridors. Marcus led the way, moving carefully and quietly. He seemed to know exactly where to go, even though he had only been on the station for a few hours. "How do you know the layout so well?" Zareth whispered. "I studied the station blueprints before we arrived. I always like to know where the exits are." As they moved deeper into the station, they could hear weapons fire and shouting. The pirates were fighting the station's security forces, but it sounded like the defenders were losing. "There," Marcus pointed down a long hallway. "Cargo Bay 12 is at the end of that corridor. But look at the scorch marks on the walls. There has been heavy fighting here." Zareth could see what he meant. The metal walls were blackened from energy weapons. Several security guards lay motionless on the floor. "How do we get past them?" she asked. Marcus examined the hallway carefully. "We do not go past them. We go through them, but not the way they expect." He led her to a maintenance hatch in the wall. The ventilation system runs above the ceiling. "We can crawl through the air ducts and come down behind them." "That seems very dangerous." "Everything is dangerous now. But sometimes the most dangerous path is the safest one." As they crawled through the narrow air ducts, Zareth realized that Marcus had changed completely. The polite diplomat was gone. In his place was someone who moved like a predator, someone who thought like a hunter. She was beginning to understand that her husband was much more dangerous than anyone had imagined. Marcus and Zareth crawled through the air ducts above Cargo Bay 12. Through the metal grating below them, they could see the pirates holding their prisoners. About 40 civilians sat on the floor with their hands tied behind their backs. Men, women, and children of different species huddled together in fear. 8 pirates with heavy weapons surrounded the prisoners. Their leader was a huge Skarn with scars covering his face and arms. He paced back and forth, speaking into a communication device. "The station's defenses are almost broken," he growled. "When our ships break through, we will take the prisoners to our base. The ones we cannot sell as slaves, we will kill for fun." Zareth felt sick hearing this. These were innocent people who had done nothing wrong. She looked at Marcus, expecting to see fear or uncertainty. Instead, she saw something that made her own fear disappear. Marcus's eyes had become completely cold and focused. He studied each pirate carefully, counting their weapons and noting their positions. His breathing had slowed down, and his hands were perfectly steady. "What is your plan?" she whispered. "I am going to kill them," Marcus said simply. His voice was so calm that it took her a moment to understand what he had said. "All of them?" "Yes, but there are 8 of them, and they have military weapons." Marcus looked at her, and she saw something in his expression that she had never seen before. It was not anger or hatred. It was something much more dangerous, absolute certainty. "Zarath, I need to tell you something. I was not completely honest about my background." "What do you mean?" "I was not just a soldier. I was part of an elite unit called Special Forces. We specialized in impossible missions behind enemy lines. For 12 years, I did things that most people cannot imagine." Marcus began removing panels from his clothes and shoes. Hidden inside were small tools and weapons that she had not known existed. Every human diplomat who travels to alien worlds has military training. We learned long ago that the galaxy is a dangerous place. But I'm not just any diplomat. Earth chose me for this mission because I am one of their best killers. Zarath stared at him in shock. "You are an assassin?" "I am a protector. There is a difference. Assassins kill for money or politics. I kill to save innocent lives." Marcus finished assembling a small but deadly-looking weapon from the hidden pieces. "The human government did not tell your people this because they wanted you to see us as peaceful. But peace only exists when good people are willing to fight evil ones." "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because I am about to show you what humans are really capable of when we are protecting someone we care about." Marcus moved to a different air vent that was directly above the pirates. "I need you to do exactly what I say. When I give the signal, drop down through that vent over there and get the civilians away from the pirates." "Can you do that?" "Yes, but what about you?" "I will be busy." Marcus opened the air vent slowly and quietly. He looked down at the pirates like a hawk studying mice. Then he dropped through the opening dot. What happened next was the most terrifying and beautiful thing Zarath had ever seen. Marcus landed silently behind the first pirate and killed him before anyone noticed. The second pirate turned around, just in time to see Marcus throw a knife into his chest. The third pirate raised his weapon, but Marcus was already moving. He rolled behind some cargo containers and disappeared from view. The remaining pirates began shooting wildly at the shadows, but Marcus was no longer where they expected him to be. Zarath watched him appear and disappear like a ghost. Each time he showed himself, another pirate died. The pirate leader was screaming orders, but his men were too frightened to think clearly. They were used to fighting terrified civilians or poorly trained security guards. They had never fought someone who moved like Marcus. "Where is he?" one pirate shouted. "Behind you," Marcus said quietly. The pirate spun around, but Marcus had already moved again. This time, he appeared on top of a stack of cargo containers. He jumped down onto another pirate, breaking the alien's neck with his bare hands. Only 3 pirates were left now, including the leader. They stood back to back in the center of the room, pointing their weapons in all directions. "Show yourself, human coward!" The leader yelled. "As you wish." Marcus stepped out from behind the cargo containers. He no longer tried to hide. His clothes were torn and bloody, but he moved with the confidence of a predator that knew it had already won. The 3 pirates fired their weapons at him, but Marcus dove and rolled across the floor. The energy blasts missed him by inches. Before the pirates could fire again, Marcus had thrown 3 small knives. Each one found its target. 2 of the pirates fell dead immediately. The leader was wounded but still alive. He dropped his weapon and fell to his knees. "Please," he begged, I surrender. I will leave and never return. Marcus walked toward the pirate leader. His expression had not changed. He still looked calm and cold. You were going to sell children as slaves, Marcus said. That was just business. Nothing personal. For me, it is very personal. Marcus raised his weapon, but Zareth called out from where she was helping the civilians. Marcus, wait. He surrendered. Marcus looked at her, then back at the pirate. For a moment, she thought he might spare the alien's life. Then she saw him shake his head. Some people are too dangerous to leave alive. The final gunshot echoed through the cargo bay. Zareth stared at Marcus in silence. In less than 5 minutes, he had killed 8 armed pirates by himself. He had moved like nothing she had ever seen before, appearing and disappearing like death itself. Are you hurt? She asked. Marcus checked himself for injuries. A few cuts and bruises. Nothing serious. How did you do that? How did you move so fast and fight so many enemies? Training, experience, and motivation. He looked at the freed civilians who were hugging their families and thanking their rescuer. When you know that innocent people will die if you fail, you find strength you did not know you had. The sound of more fighting came from outside the cargo bay. The battle for the station was not over yet. We need to help the security forces, Marcus said. The pirates still have ships outside and more troops throughout the station. You want to fight more of them? Marcus reloaded his weapons with ammunition taken from the dead pirates. I want to end this, completely. As they left the cargo bay, Zareth realized that everything she thought she knew about humans was wrong. Marcus was not just intelligent or persistent. He was one of the most dangerous individuals she had ever met. But the strangest part was that she was not afraid of him. She knew that his violence was controlled and directed only at those who threatened the innocent. He had risked his life to save strangers, and he had killed without hesitation to protect the weak. Marcus, she said, as they moved through the corridors toward the sounds of battle. Yes? When this is over, we need to have a very long conversation about what kind of person I am actually married to. Marcus smiled grimly. When this is over, I will tell you everything. But right now, I have a job to finish. The sound of gunfire grew louder as they approached the station's main security center. Zareth followed her husband into battle, finally understanding that she was married to something far more complex and dangerous than anyone had imagined. She was married to a human warrior. And for the first time since this whole arrangement began, she was proud of that fact. The battle for Nexus 7 lasted 6 more hours. Marcus led the station's security forces in a series of attacks that slowly drove the pirates back to their ships. Zareth watched her husband coordinate the defense with a skill that amazed even the professional soldiers. He seemed to know exactly where the pirates would attack next and how to stop them. When the security chief asked how he could predict the enemy's movements, Marcus explained that human military training included studying the psychology of different alien species. Pirates are predictable, he said while marking positions on a tactical map. They want quick victories and easy profits. When they face real resistance, they make mistakes. By the time the sun rose over the station, the Ravager clan ships were retreating into deep space. 30 pirates had been killed, and the rest had fled. The station was safe, but the cost had been high. Many security officers and civilians had died in the fighting. Zara Edge found Marcus in the medical bay, helping treat wounded civilians. His clothes were dirty and torn, and he had cuts on his face and hands. But he worked tirelessly to help others. You should be resting, she told him. There is too much work to do, he replied while bandaging a young Makari child's injured arm. These people need help more than I need sleep. Zareth watched him comfort the frightened child, speaking in the few words of Makari language he knew. This was the same man who had killed 8 pirates without hesitation just hours before. The same hands that had dealt death so efficiently were now gentle and caring as they helped heal the wounded. "I do not understand you," she said quietly. Marcus looked up from his work. "What do you mean? How can you be so violent and so kind at the same time? How can you kill enemies and then help their victims with equal skill?" Marcus was quiet for a moment, thinking about her question. "My people have a saying, a warrior's greatest victory is not defeating his enemies, but protecting those who cannot protect themselves. Violence is a tool, like a surgeon's knife. It can cause harm or it can save lives, depending on how it is used." 3 days later, they returned to Zarath's ship for the journey back to Valkyrie space. The official marriage ceremony would take place on her home world, in front of the Emperor and the High Council. But something had changed during the battle at Nexus 7. Zarath no longer saw Marcus as a primitive alien she was forced to marry for political reasons. She saw him as a partner, someone who had risked everything to protect strangers. Someone who had shown her what true strength really meant. "I owe you an apology," she said as they sat together in her private dining room. "For what?" "For thinking that humans were inferior to my people. For believing that your species had nothing valuable to offer the galaxy." Marcus smiled. "Your people are not wrong to think that way. Humans are young and foolish in many ways. We fight each other over stupid things. We damage our planet with pollution. We make the same mistakes over and over again. Then why do I feel like we have been the foolish ones? Because your people have forgotten something that we have not yet learned to forget. What is that? How to fight for what matters. Your people have had peace and advanced technology for so long that you have forgotten why those things are worth protecting. You have rules and honor codes for everything. But sometimes rules are not enough." Zara thought about this. Her people did have very specific ways of doing things. They followed traditions that were thousands of years old. They believed that civilization meant being polite and following proper procedures. "At Nexus 7, you broke many rules," she said. "You killed surrendering enemies. You used dirty fighting tactics. You showed no mercy to your opponents." "Yes, I did. But you also saved hundreds of innocent lives." "Yes. So which was more important? Following the rules of civilized behavior or protecting the innocent?" Marcus looked directly into her eyes. "What do you think?" Zarath realized that she already knew the answer. Protecting the innocent, always. That is what makes humans dangerous to some people, but valuable to others. We will break any rule, ignore any tradition, and sacrifice anything to protect what we love. That night, Zarath made a decision that would change the future of both their species. She sent a message to her father, the Emperor, explaining what had really happened at Nexus 7. She told him about Marcus's true background and abilities. She described how one human had defeated an entire pirate force using tactics that no Valkyrie commander had ever imagined. Most importantly, she recommended that the alliance with Earth be expanded beyond simple trade agreements. When they arrived at the Valkyrie home world, Zarath and Marcus were brought before the High Council. The great chamber was filled with the most important leaders of the Empire. The Emperor sat on his crystal throne, surrounded by advisors and military commanders. "Daughter," the Emperor said formally, "we have read your report about the incident at Nexus 7. Some of our advisors believe you have exaggerated the abilities of this human." Admiral Corthex, the head of the Imperial military, stepped forward. "Your Highness, with respect, one alien cannot possibly defeat 8 trained warriors." Perhaps the princess was confused by the stress of battle. Zarath felt anger rise in her chest. "I was not confused. I saw everything with my own eyes." "Stories often grow in the telling," Admiral Corthex said dismissively. "Humans are known to be primitive fighters with simple weapons." Marcus had been standing silently beside Zarath throughout this conversation. Now he spoke for the first time since entering the chamber. "Admiral Cortex, would you like a demonstration?" The Admiral looked surprised. "A demonstration of what?" "Of what humans can do when we need to protect someone we care about." The Emperor leaned forward with interest. "What kind of demonstration?" "A combat exercise. Your best fighters against me. Non-lethal weapons only, of course. I would not want to hurt anyone." Admiral Cortex laughed. "Human, you are either very brave or very stupid. I have been training for combat for over 200 years. I have been training for 32 years. But I learned from a species that has been fighting for survival since we first picked up sticks and stones." The combat demonstration took place in the training arena beneath the palace. Marcus faced 5 of the Empire's finest warriors, including Admiral Cortex. They used training weapons that could cause pain but not permanent injury. The fight lasted less than 3 minutes. When it was over, all 5 Valkyrie warriors were on the ground, and Marcus was barely breathing hard. The watching council members sat in stunned silence. "How?" Admiral Cortex asked from where he lay on the arena floor. "Your fighting style is beautiful and honorable," Marcus replied, helping the Admiral to his feet. "But it follows predictable patterns. You fight like dancers performing a ballet. Humans fight like animals defending their cubs." Later that evening, Zareth and Marcus stood on a balcony overlooking the capital city. The marriage ceremony had been completed, and the alliance between their peoples had been formally expanded to include military cooperation and technology sharing. "What happens now?" Zareth asked. "Now we learn from each other. Your people can teach humans wisdom and patience. Maybe we can teach your people that sometimes survival is more important than tradition." Zareth looked at the man who was now truly her husband, not just a political arrangement. "I have one more question." "What is that?" "When you fought those pirates, when you killed them to protect strangers, was that the real you? Or was that something you became for that situation?" Marcus thought carefully before answering. "That was me. But it was not all of me. Humans are capable of great violence when we need to be. But we are also capable of great love, great creativity, and great sacrifice. The violence is just one tool in our kit." "And which part of you do I get to know?" Marcus smiled and took her hand. "All of it. The warrior, the diplomat, the engineer, the protector. Everything I am is yours now, if you want it." Zareth looked out over her city, thinking about the future. Her people had ruled this part of the galaxy for thousands of years through superior technology and careful diplomacy. But the galaxy was changing. New threats were emerging. Pirates, rebels, and hostile species were becoming bolder. Maybe what the Valkyrie Empire needed was not just allies, but partners who remembered how to fight for what mattered. Partners who would never give up, never surrender, never stop trying to protect the innocent. Partners like the humans. "Marcus," she said finally. "Yes? I think this marriage is going to be very interesting." Marcus laughed, and the sound echoed across the crystalline towers of the Valkyrie capital. In that laugh, Zareth heard something that her people had almost forgotten. The sound of someone who was truly alive. Someone who embraced both the beauty and the danger of existence. She had married a human warrior. And for the first time in her life, she felt truly safe.